The shock and awe campaign obviously changed my life because being that, dropping the first bomb of that shock and awe campaign is what I've been talking about now for going on 19 years of being the opportunity to be able to do something like this. And when we first started talking about Iraq, Secretary Rumsfeld was talking about, hey, let's build an air power plan to where we want to go ahead, or we want to, for the first 3 nights of the war, we want to bomb them around the clock with different target sets. It didn't matter what it was, but basically 72 hours of continuous air power, mostly bombing. There's some jamming, there's some other political things, dropping leaflets. I mean, there's a big plan there, but largely the bombing, and we wanted to keep basically the Iraqi military forces awake for 72 hours to where not only are they worried about their lives, they're not able to sleep, think, communicate, any of that stuff. So that was kind of the plan.
And this is one of the largest campaigns in, the U.S. modern day air camp bombing history, huh?
It is. And when you look at total tonnage of the bombage that was dropped, it was bigger than Hiroshima or Nagasaki. I mean, it really is the biggest ever if you count it as one big package. And then the way we were going to do it is it started at 9:00 p.m. Baghdad. We didn't know when it was going to start, but whenever it kicked off, it was going to be early in the evening, Baghdad time. We're going to put some cruise missiles in first, which is going to basically knock out the last little threats that were going to be there for me, which is some surface air missiles, some radar sites, some communications nodes.
Wow.
All of that was going to get hit, and then we were going to start flying manned airplanes with the F-117s going first. And my particular mission going absolutely first through to take out one remaining command center that was a 5-story building, so you couldn't take it out with cruise missiles. So I had to go take that out, and then from there, B-2s, F-15Es, F-18s, basically continuous air power was going to happen for 72 hours. And while that was going on, at some point the Army, I should say ground forces, not Army, but the ground forces were going to get the thumbs up, and then in they come, right? And it was all this, coordinated, we're going to basically turn the place upside down for 72 hours, and then when the ground forces come in, they'll have an easier go of it as far as executing their mission.
So before you go any further, to summarize this is Iraq 2003, the first ever this air mission was to go in, completely just bomb the shit out of everything for 72 hours straight to give everybody there a sense of just paralyze them almost, so they just have lost the will to fight, ensue complete chaos, everything goes nuts, and then the ground forces come in after that.
Correct, with a slight caveat of it was very strategic type bombing. In other words, we weren't going to level the city.
Correct.
Unlike we've done in the past.
Good point.
Right? But it was very targeted mass application of air power of only military structures. And the goal, if you heard Secretary Rumsfeld talk about this, he goes, if we do this correctly, and here I am, young warfighter, brand new major, he's like, ladies and gentlemen, if we do this correctly, we will be able to walk into Baghdad and we will be met with open arms by the Iraqi people, and they will give us flowers and chocolates.
Because we're done bombing them.
Because we are now there to save them from their evil dictator.
Interesting.
And it's, you hear that and you're like, so I'm going to drop bombs on Baghdad, and then the ground folks are going to go in some point after that, and they're going to be welcomed. Like, thank you so much. It's like, I don't know if that's, I don't think history played out that way.
So we'll talk about that. So take me back then. You're about to go do this. How many planes? How long did you train for this? Were there, the routes? I know you went from, was it north to south?
I did.
And there was there also east to west? What did that all look like?
Sure. So when you build an air power campaign, it ultimately and doctrinally, you start kind of with the target set and the end objective. So you say, okay, in Baghdad, we want to destabilize their military, we want to knock out their eyes and ears, but we want to leave things like, power plants. We don't want to take power from the people. We don't want to blow up the water and bridges and things that we're going to have to turn around and rebuild.
Sure.
That was Vietnam style, right? It's like, just go blow it all up, and then we figured, well, we're going to have to go back and rebuild all that. So let's just not blow that up in the first place, right? Let's be a little more strategic about what we're doing. So you build out the target set. And then we have the fortunate ability up in Nevada to be able to have a large chunk of airspace to where we can really practice, if you will. So think hundreds of miles of open land, Area 51, all the, the stuff that's rumored is kind of hidden on this range. And you fly over this range, and that's where you really practice as if you're going over Baghdad.
Interesting.
And we practice in such a challenging environment that when you go to execute the mission, it's a lot easier than it was when you practiced it. So when you say how long, I'd say we practiced this for about 6 months.
Oh, wow.
On occasion, not every day, but you would get the forces together and you'd practice this to make sure we kind of knew what we were doing. And then when we deployed over there to the Middle East, we were out of Qatar, and every day, we didn't know when go day was. We didn't know it'd be towards the end of March, but we got over there early February, and we would practice basically taking off out of Qatar, go up the Persian Gulf, where we had a couple carriers, we had all these forces there. We'd go in through Kuwait, and then we'd turn around and come back home. Knowing that one night we would end up going through Kuwait and up over into Baghdad.
But you knew it was a training, obviously, mission. It
we
wasn't
did.
like you, okay, yeah.
We were trying to desensitize the Iraqi forces of that, oh, well, okay, it's going to be tonight. And then we turn around. And they're like, oh, it's not tonight. And then after you do that over a month, then, like everybody else, they're like, well,
I'll just
one of these days, but it was probably not tonight. And then sure enough, then, the big day it was.
Wow. So the night it happened, the day of go time, what were you feeling initially?
So the strategy, to kind of answer your earlier question, then I will get to that. So the strategy was there was 9 F-117s. So if you picture the helmet is Baghdad, and this is north, and we're looking, the camera angle is looking at the map of Baghdad. There were 9 of us. 4 were coming in west to east, the other were coming in east to west, and then there was one Lone Ranger that had to go up north of town and go north to south through Baghdad to take out a command center that was up here north of town. And that was one we had not been able to reach, and the cruise missiles weren't going to be able to take it down. It's a 5-story building. So, and even one F-117 couldn't take it down. So I had to come up here. I hit this target, put 2 2,000-pound bombs in it, cratered about 60% to 70% of it, went downtown. My second target was downtown. And then the other airplanes were all meeting to the exact second, 9:20 local Baghdad time, all over downtown. And then there was another airplane that was going to come up and hit the remaining part of the command center.
Wow.
So kind of finish the building off. So that was the overall plan. And when you think of, you asked about and then that kicks it off, and then B2s come in, and then everybody else comes in after us. You talk about how you feel. Well, you're excited that it's finally happening.
Understand that.
President Bush kind of gave the 48 hours to get out of Iraq, otherwise we're coming in. So he did that Monday night, and then this was Friday is when we finally kicked off the shock and awe campaign. And you're excited to go do the mission, to do what you've been training for. You're excited that you're lucky enough to literally be the one getting called for this. And then I, through a different circumstance, ended up with this mission where I was going in first. I was originally going to be downtown and then be the guy that goes up and hits the target second
on the
and then ended
building.
up switching with my boss. So I was in there first, and then he went up second to finish things off. But going out the door, I would say it's exactly like many books have been written about, movies made about. You're making a historical maneuver, and there's books that have been, the story has been carried in books and things and be talked about for a long time, but your personal feeling is, I don't want to screw up.
Yeah.
I don't want to let my buddies down.
Sure.
Because that's who I really care about. The strategy, sure, I'm young. I don't know if the strategy is going to work. I believe what we're doing as a country, but that's way above my pay grade, right? That kind of mentality. But I want to make sure I go in and I hit my targets as I should, and then, I'm ready to go the next night to go do it again.
Is it everything pre-programmed in the computer, the targets lat long, everything like that?
Everything is pre-programmed down to the exact second.
Wow. So
my first time on target was 9:16:38. That was my command center time on target. That was exactly when it was going to happen. I was flying along the Iranian border. Since I had to go north of Baghdad, I had to fly along the Iranian border to go get north of Baghdad to then turn around and come north to south through Baghdad.
Right, so go up and come back down.
Yeah, so I had a super long route where I was literally the only one there. And I was abeam Baghdad when the Tomahawk missiles hit right at 9 p.m. smooth. So you see all these little pockets of explosions, which is us
And what altitude are you at that point?
We generally stayed between 20 and 25,000 feet. So when you think of an airliner, that doesn't mean a lot to a lot of people, right? So when you think of an airliner, generally an airliner is at that 35 to 40,000 feet. So, a little over less than half of that, I guess I should say. But it's just like flying over a city at night.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty. It wasn't blacked out. You would think maybe that it should have been blacked out a little more, but that's up to Iraq. But it wasn't blacked out like you would think it would have been. And all these explosions start going off, and then I see stuff starting to fill the air as far as muzzle flashes from the ground and anti-aircraft fire going up and surface-to-air missiles being launched. And because they don't know.
But you're in your own little zone, right? You're in your own little world, and are you just so focused on the instruments? And what's the actually going through your head?
Well, it's weird because in this airplane, the computers are flying it, and like you said earlier, everything's pre-programmed. So. And we talked beforehand about a funny nickname for this is the cockroach, because it only flies at night, and then when you fly, instead of straight lines, every little bit, in case you're not quite invisible, you change headings by at least 30 degrees, and you change altitude. So the airplane's doing this, but it's all pre-programmed. My hands are not on the stick and throttle while I'm going into my target, which is crazy, right? You would think everything is about flying the airplane there. It's not. The airplane's basically flying itself. And I come in to when it's time to actually employ the ordinance to make sure that I can identify that I have the 100% for sure the correct target.
How do you identify? What are you looking through?
You're looking through the bottom of the airplane, has an infrared camera, if you will. And it starts out the front of the airplane. You're looking long term. You're looking for a building, and you have a series of satellite photos on your leg that you've memorized, but you also back up. And you're looking at making sure, okay, there's nine city blocks. I'm looking for this one. There's a bridge here. It's the second one over from that. Yep. Confirm I have the building. And then you move into closer pictures as you zoom in to make sure not only do you have the right building, but the right vent on the right building.
Wow.
Wow. So that's your job, is weapons employment. The airplane's actually kind of flying itself. So to take us back to when I was next to Baghdad and it's 9 o'clock, the airplane's doing its thing. I'm literally a little kid, like looking out the window at Baghdad, and I'm watching the clock in the airplane, because you're blacked out, so you can't see your watch. So you have it in the airplanes, you kind of glance at the clock, and it's like 5 seconds, 4 seconds, nothing's happening, 3 seconds, 2 seconds, 1 second, then you look out and it's like, it's just like crazy how precise everything was.
Wow.
And from there, because I'm going northbound around 450 miles an hour or so. So I'm not there a long time to be able to watch this. But as I'm kind of watching Baghdad pass behind me, I'm seeing, that's when I first started thinking all this stuff that is now filling the air. It's like, yeah, I get to turn around and fly through that in 20 minutes. Because that's exactly, because I can see where I'm going to be.
Now, isn't there an aspect of this as well? You were saying that when you get close enough to your target, communication drops off and you have no comms with the outside world?
It's even before that. So different from any other warfighting that I can think of. Even a special ops team that's going in a super secret mission, they're at least going to be on a closed circuit network or something to communicate with each other, even if it's only a few of you. When in the F-117, as you do what's called stealthing up, you bring all the antennas inside the airplane. And the tolerances on this thing to where it goes in, and then the tolerances, the structure closes where there's no seams or anything for a radar beam to pick up. You can't hear anything. So, and I would stealth up south of Baghdad. So even before that 9 o'clock, probably
so you
10 minutes
fly all the way
prior
back
to
up.
that. Yeah, so
Make a U-turn, then fly back down. Jeez.
Flying through all this, and hitting my first target, hitting my second target, and then flying outside of I called it the Ring of Death. Well, everybody called it the Ring of Death. Kind of the ring around Baghdad where he had burned some tires and there was some smoke. So you kind of get south of that, and then that's when you throw the antennas out and you check in. And that's the first time you're hearing anybody. Other than that, it's just you all alone by yourself, and you don't know if other airplanes have been shot down. If there's an abort order, you would never get it. And that's what they always told you in the F-117 is they said, well, kind of the bad part of this is if we abort, if Rumsfeld called this thing off at 9:05, I don't know about it. There's no way to get to me.
Is there any sense of peace or tranquility? You're there by yourself. You don't hear anything. There's not a lot of chatters or any sense of calm.
It's weird for sure. I had you just not knowing of what's going on out there. But it's okay. It almost helps you focus on your mission.
Right.
And then I was a Pulp Fiction fan, still am. So I had memorized the Ezekiel 25:17, the path of the righteous man. So I kind of, you entertain yourself, right? So I knew that this was going to be this way. So when I went to drop on the first target, knowing that was going to be the first bomb from a manned aircraft that night, I'd memorized that. It took me 43 seconds to say the full spiel. So I was, you would do things to make sure you hit the target. Came off the first target, look up, acquire the second target. A couple minutes later, hit that, and then off target is when you kind of look around and realize,
It's done.
I'm done. It's done. Yeah, you're right. It's I hit my targets.
Mission accomplished.
And then right out the other side. And what I didn't know, which we didn't talk about earlier, you may have caught it in some books, but so there's 9 of us on this attack.
Right.
I did not know until I'm off target, southbound, going back to the refueling track. Only 3 of us made it across the target that night.
Meaning
3
what?
of the 9. The other 6 airplanes did not meet some timing sorts of things, and they had to abort. So they didn't even go.
So if they can't meet that time, they have to drop their bomb. They can't. It's over. They can't.
They can't even go into Baghdad to be able to drop their bomb.
Is that because of flight patterns and risk, or is that just because we don't want to drop a bomb late because of whatever reason?
It's mostly deconfliction and timing, meaning you don't want to. If you run late, you don't want to start messing. You've seen the plans that start getting.
So only 3 of the 9 on the
9
first night made it to their time on target.
Mm-hmm.
No shit.
Of the stealthiest airplane that's ever been made, and
like
still
what are
only got
1 or
there.
2 reasons the others did not make it?
I will simply say there was some logistics involved and some assumptions that were made. So if as an example, if you're a planner and it takes 20 minutes to do something, or say, let's use the making a baby, 9 months to make a baby, and because maybe when you plan all this out, it'd be a little more convenient for everybody if it only took 8 months, and you change that number, and nobody catches it, it doesn't work, right? At some point, the numbers catch up with you. So there had been some assumptions made that were not physically even possible that cost the rest of the string, and by the time we knew it was happening, I never knew it was happening because I was first. So it didn't affect me whatsoever.
And that was just night 1.
That was just night 1.
And this went on for another 3-4 days.
Yes, and we fixed it after, obviously fixed it instantly as it was going down.
Wow.
But I didn't know about it because I'm already up,
Right.
flying over Baghdad, on my way to Baghdad by the time this starts happening. And imagine my surprise, because I think 9 of us were there, and, stuff's blowing up. When I hit my second target, you can see stuff blowing up, and it's like, yeah. And then I come find out there's actually only 3 of us there out of the original 9.
Anybody, quote unquote, get in trouble?
There was
reprimanded, or whatever the term is?
Yeah, there were repercussions for that event. So
did you may or may not know, but does it go through your or any other pilot's mind, like we're probably killing people?
Yeah, you become one with that pretty early on, and even at pilot training. At some point, and I was a commander of a flying training squadron where I taught folks how to transition them from flying, before I sent them off to a fighter or bomber, you would bring them in and say, okay, all right, you joined the military, so I know you kind of get it, right? And militaries involve killing other people. But before you go into a career of, you could be killing not just a few people, but en masse, lots of people with what you're doing. You need to be at one with that before you make your selection.
Interesting.
So if you were say you were my number 3 guy, and I would say, hey, I'm looking at sending you off to a B-1 bomber. David, you've done great. I think you're going to be very successful. You can go forth and employ this bomber for this nation for the next probably 20 years if you want to. I go, but, you okay with looking at mom and kids in the eye and knowing that there's some death and destruction at the other end of that?